Hello, everyone, and welcome back to Crossroads of Cognizance, the place where Katrina and I, Dahlia, are creating a community discussion around different topics, our experiences, and offering not just our guidance, but our perspective. And also, sometimes you'll find that we kind of come to our own awareness on the show in real time. So it's a lot of fun. And as we are doing this, as we do this every Thursday, we want to be able to hear from you. We want to hear your perspectives, your experiences. And so we'll just do a little bit of housekeeping here. If you're on Facebook, you're going to click that go live, or not go live, but the actual live broadcast. We can see your comments. And if you're on YouTube, you're just going to enjoy your time and share if you so choose. If this is your first time with us, though, we will get into these introductions and things of that nature. But first, as far as today's topic, I think it's going to be pretty interesting. We will be tackling some posts that were on Reddit about spirituality, about witchcraft, and we'll be sharing our perspectives and hopefully sparking some conversations in you. What are your beliefs around what we're doing and talking about? So without further ado, we have introductions. I am over here on the East Coast. I am Dahlia Rose. I am the founder of the Conduit School, and I teach and guide from that place and through different experiences such as healing sessions, reading, spiritual counseling, and anything woo-woo I can really get my hands on, but mainly personal development. And I'm doing this from my corner of the world just to add to our evolution, add to our advancement, and hoping to expand our thought processes, our ability to heal, and to be more than we thought possible.
I'm Katrina Rasbold, and half of the team here. I'm also half the team at crossroadsoccult.com. My husband Eric and I make magical products to sell to people. I also provide readings, cleansings, and spell work for people through virtual means and remote means, and that's all listed and discussed at length on crossroadsoccult.com. I'm also a published author of many books, and you can find me on Amazon if you just put in Katrina Rasbold. It'll come up. You can find my author page, and there's around 40 something books on there. And that is what I do. I'm also editor at Green Egg Magazine, which is the longest running pagan periodical still in publication. And we today, happy winter solstice, everybody.
Oh, yeah, that too.
Welcome to the light. So glad that it's coming back to our sky, although I enjoy the darkness. And our newest edition, the Yule edition, just came out today. It's 50 pages of amazing articles, $3.50 at greeneggmagazine.com. And I'm excited to hear what you say about it. We've got some wonderful contributors this time. I'm really excited about this edition.
Oh, nice. Very cool. Definitely go check that out, guys. Katrina has a lot going on too. Even the, are you still doing the subscription-based stuff as well?
I do Patreon as well, and I post weekly readings there for two different types of readings. I do the weekly focus reading that tells us what to focus on for that week, and I do the divine feminine reading, which is a message from the goddess for that week, and those are all on my Patreon. If you go to katrinarasbold.com, my link tree is there, and it shows all the different things that I do now that I'm retired.
Right. What does retirement actually mean?
It means I work 7 days a week.
Oh, man. Okay. So I found myself on Reddit recently. I love that that place is like a stream of consciousness sort of space, and it seems to be a place where maybe more than Facebook and some of the other social sites where you can really, at least on the outskirts of it, people feel like they can get support, get advice. And so I was navigating the site and I found this very interesting post that we are going to post in our comments section here, but I'll read it for you guys who are live. So, basically, we are looking at a person who is a Christian, and I want to make sure I get this word for word here. So, bear with me. So we're looking at a person who's a Christian, and this is how the post goes. It's titled "A Little Help as a Christian." I'm scared of death, and I'm very Christian. I keep praying, and I'm scared I'll die and be gone forever. And I don't want to lose my family either. I can't handle the thought of dying or losing my family members. I wouldn't be able to handle it. I don't want it to happen, and I want to live. I want to live forever with my family and be immortal. And when it's time to go to heaven, I hope God takes our hands and leads us there to transition into the kingdom of God forever and ever. God bless everyone. Amen. And there was an edit that says, I've had multiple near-death experiences. That's what has shaken my faith and made me fear death. So more than anything, to start off, this isn't necessarily a question or a discussion around the fact that this person is Christian. I think the conversation sort of transcends this because death is coming for everyone. So, you literally, it's one of very few things that you can actually avoid. So this is where we're beginning, is this piece on this fear of death.
So, first off, of course, most people who have spent time on the internet know Reddit is one of the most argumentative sites on earth since 4chan. I mean, it's very combative sometimes. It was very brave of this person to post this on Reddit, I feel. I also feel, if you are able to do so, since you know where these are, and we had another one we're going to kind of touch on as well, I think you should post the link to this broadcast in the comment sections.
Absolutely.
So a couple of things. Gosh, and I'm trying to be very supportive. One of the things the perspective you took is that this transcends Christianity, and I agree with that to a point, except they're beating that to death in this. They identify themselves as very Christian, not just Christian, they're very Christian.
Right.
And that means that their labels, their identities as a Christian are extremely important to them. And when I'm reading things from a psychological perspective of, I can't handle the thought of dying, I'm scared I'll die and be gone forever. Two thoughts come into my mind. Number one, what is the need that you have to be so extremely significant? There is an underlying fear, not necessarily just of death in their words, but also that they are not going to be significant, that I will not have made an impact, that I'm going to die and be gone forever, that I will lose my family forever, or that my family will die and be gone forever. Therefore, we want to be immortal. Okay, Jesus, that's fine. But there's concern about that need to be that significant, that where all of us have mortality and all of us have an appointment with death, they specifically should live. They specifically should be immortal to the exclusion of the rest of us. Now, we know it's not practical for all humans on Earth to have immortality and live forever. Unless we just stop having babies, that's going to be a bad choice.
Right.
So I'm concerned about that elitism. That's a little bit concerning as to why they need to be significant. I also see the continual reference to I'm Christian, I'm very Christian. A little help as a Christian. Come on, I'm Christian. Did you notice I'm Christian? By the way, I'm Christian. Not Christian, I'm very Christian. But then we go to when it's time to go to heaven. Okay, I'm on board. I hope God takes our hands. Okay, so I was Christian for many years, and the theology, the Christian theology, is that there is no doubt that this is going to happen.
Right.
There is no doubt that we go to heaven. There is no doubt that we face Judgment Day. There is no doubt that we are reunited with our loved ones. That is a hallmark, a hallmark of
And
Christian
that's
culture.
your immortality.
That then becomes your immortality. So, as my mom said, told you that, tell you this. That all being the case, what's concerning about it for me is if you hope that God is going to take your hands and lead you to glory, how good of a Christian are you? Because you're already doubting the theology. You're doubting what's going to happen next for you in your afterlife. You're doubting that God is going to welcome you into the loving Christian God embrace. So, with all of the reassurance that they're Christian, oh, bullet point, bullet point, bullet point of I'm Christian. And then to say, I hope God takes my hand and blah, blah, blah. Sure, there's conflict there. And that's what I'm noting right from the get-go is they don't seem very solid in their belief. I don't know if they don't elaborate on their near-death experience. I don't know if something happened in that near-death experience that fractured their faith in some way. Apparently not, since they still frequently identify as Christian in one post. But also, I don't know if it's just the fact that they had those near-death experiences, which brought death right here for them to make them feel more mortal. They don't elaborate on why specifically the near-death experiences are relevant to this conversation.
It seems to me like there's a couple things going on in that post, and that is this. It seemed like about halfway through them writing it, they started to become concerned that God wouldn't be happy with their question, and so it was like convince self, convince others, and then whatever spiritual energies may be watching. This is, just know that this isn't a doubt for me. This is just something that I want. I also wonder, because like a lot of NDEs, when they're experienced, they describe almost a nothingness in that space. And so I think no matter how it happened, there's this moment where you go, wait, my faith promised me something that I'm not experiencing. What do I do? And lastly, it seems to me that there is, I think there's levels to belief systems when it comes to the religious experience, or even the I don't know what you would call like a spiritual system where there are specific tenets, but it's not religious. And that is to say, like, in those belief systems, some people are okay with a level where they're just sort of fed the information, but it's not really a part of them, their life, or who they are. And then there are others who try to connect deeply and find a sense of meaning within who they are. So like, it's not just I'm going to read the Gospels, but I'm going to interpret this for my life personally, and they're okay with that. I think those are two paths that diverge in religion, and this sounds like, or at least comes across as a person who did not take the deep dive, and therefore has had their foundation shaken up. And in giving away that power, because it does feel like a power giveaway, I want to reach out to this person and ask them, like, what what is it that you feel you haven't finished that requires immortality? Or what is so grand about the life that you live, in fear, by the way, that you feel you need to hang on to this beyond the promise of heaven in your Christian faith?
Mm,
Um, so I find this person very intriguing. I'm like, oh,
I
let's have
agree.
a
And
conversation.
let's get one. Let's take the elephant that's in the room and just put sunglasses on it for a minute. Um, I think most of us, very few of us, want to die.
For sure.
Most of us have a feeling, and especially, I mean, I had a couple of brushes with death a couple years ago, and really brought it up personal to my face. Also, as I got to the place at that same year that I had those brushes with death, that was the same year that I outlived both of my parents.
Mm-hmm.
So that by that point, I had lived longer than either one of them had. And so I've had a lot of dealings with death. I also am a devotee of many, 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 many years of Santa Muerte, the saint of death, the holy saint of death. And so by working with her, you can't not confront death. You have to have a working relationship with death and with endings and with finality, and the way that that adds flavor to your life, and the way that that adds significance to your life, that it's going to end. And so far, we don't know of anyone who has lived who hasn't had their life end or expect to have it end. But the point is that none of us really probably want that. Now, I don't know how I'm going to feel at age 90 or 100, or at some point when I feel more sense of completion, or when I feel especially infirm all the time, or whatever it might be.
Sure.
I might then feel ready to die. But I think most people don't. I think most people feel like there's unfinished business, feel like I didn't get enough time, feel like I need more time with my family. So these aren't foreign concepts to anybody. Um, but two things that I have seen that I don't want to say ring as insincere. And as Bram said, I don't want to belittle their fears at all, or belittle what they're feeling. But two things are incongruent with this discussion. One is, as a Christian of many, many years, I knew a lot of Christians, and I knew Christians who spoke candidly and enthusiastically about their faith. The majority of them could not wait to get to Jesus,
Yeah.
and had a very strong excitement about the afterlife, not to the point that they would hurry things along, but that they were very comfortable with their concept of the afterlife and where that was going to lead, and the benefits that would be there for them during that time. So it's concerning, again, that this is a Christian person that is really ill at ease with what God has provided for them after death. The
And
other thing that's, I'm sorry, go ahead.
well, I was gonna add to what you were speaking to in terms of the incongruency. It also seems like, in terms of the Christian faith, you are like pushed to strive for that moment where you get to go and be with God, and you're pushed to get right with everything. And it seems like this person is prioritizing being with their family over being with
Mhm.
Jesus and all of that.
But you're promised that too. And this could be a matter of maybe their family members, they have concern about their family members not making it to heaven, not being
Mhm.
on
Yeah.
the sheep side instead of the goat side. And so, but theologically, in Christianity, we're promised we will be reunited with all of our loved ones. We will be with them again at their highest and their best selves. So that's one thing that feels incongruent to me. Another thing that's a little incongruent with me is something else that Bram pointed out. And that is, I have known a lot of people that have had near death experiences. And Dahlia, I'm sure that you have too.
Yes.
And I cannot think, honest to God, of a single one that came away with an authentic near death experience more afraid of death.
Yes. Yes. Now that you
Most of the
mention it.
ones I met were less afraid of death. And a lot of them actually were much more reassured about what's thereafter. They talked about feelings of bliss. They talked about feeling surrounded by love and light. Some of them actually felt like they saw Jesus, or they saw a divine figure. They saw a great goddess that welcomed them and held them. You know, I've had a lot of people with near-death experiences that really came away with it more at peace with dying than they were before. So I would say I've probably known more than 100 people in my professional experience that have had near-death experiences, and I cannot think of a single one that felt more afraid afterwards. So those are two things that make me concerned about this. And Bram mentioned, what is the support that they are seeking, that they are taking these fears to a public forum. I know that people do have these fears. I know Christians also have these fears. I'm not trying to pretend that they don't. But it almost seems like this person is looking for an emotional response from people about this. They went to the point of saying that there are trigger warnings about this, about what they're about to say. So they're anticipating this being a loaded discussion, or an insightful, not insightful, INSIGHTFUL, but I mean inciting subject, sort of incendiary subject.
Mm.
And I just don't know that it is as huge of a subject for other people as it is for them. And again, that's not to minimize their fears. They need to get professional help to figure out what is their underlying fear. It's not death. There's
No.
something else about
Yeah.
this that they're
Maybe it's
afraid of.
maybe it's pain. Maybe it's, like you were saying, something with the family members. I remember uh, talking to someone who was, wanted to pass away, actually. And they were concerned that no one would properly care for their special needs child. And so it was actually the reverse, that she wanted both of them to pass.
Yeah.
Um,
Also, Dahlia, something else that I see in people that makes me feel, if this is genuine and not a setup to create discussion. Another thing I'm seeing is something you've probably seen as well, which is people who are raised or live a life in such a way that they don't experience trauma. And there are people that actually get through to be adults who don't have a lot of trauma in their life. So they haven't experienced loss. They haven't lost a loved one. They haven't even lost a pet. I mean, they haven't had trauma. They underestimate their ability to deal with that because they don't have experience dealing with that. Then you have the complete other side of that spectrum, which are people who have had so much trauma in their lives they can't bear the idea of any more pain, any more grief. So it could be any of these two. And another thing that comes up that we need to look at is we don't have
we don't have a
an age on this person. This
oh
could be a 15-year-old having these kinds of existential thoughts.
sure.
So without that perspective, I think that having said all of those things, my summation of this is need more information.
Sure. I think so. For me, I imagine a person who, like, especially when you're like, this person needs professional help, I imagine a person who needs to air out their entire thought process
Exactly.
without fear of judgment, and cannot do that. I mean, I'm sure there are religious organizations and religious leaders that would do so and hold space without an agenda. But the safe assumption is that's not true. Like, the safe assumption is a sheep is waning and we need to bring it back into the fold, as opposed to how do we get you okay with the life that you're living, or the life that you'll continue to live. And if you've had multiple experiences, let's have a conversation about maybe, I mean, part of me is like, what if she was introduced to like all her past lives in that liminal space, and that just like rocked her world and was like, nope, okay, this lifetime I'm a Christian, can't believe that. There's so much to this. I think if I was sitting in front of this person, because I do have Christian clients, because belief systems, I think both Katrina and I do, because belief systems don't play a role in our services. I would be looking at this person, as I've said throughout this broadcast, and just being like, okay, this is not about death. This is about your regrets, your personal development. Like, how do we get you, what does your the highest version of you that you can imagine look like, and how do we draw you closer to that? What would make your connection to Jesus, God, or whoever stronger? And then going from there, not even approaching like the whole Christian thing. I'd be like, well, we can, probably put that on the back burner, because ultimately, as a human being, your existential crisis is with living, not dying. So that would be my, I guess, my summation.
Something else I'm noticing is where they said, I'm scared I'll die and be gone forever. That leads me to believe that when they had their near-death experiences, maybe they were in that place of nothingness. And the absence of that, well, I thought Jesus is going to be here to meet me. I thought God was going to be here to take my hand. And where are you? Led them to feel adrift, or led them to feel disconnected or let down, where maybe they were just in the transitional phase. You were having a near-death experience, not a death experience.
Right. Wild situation.
I'm sorry, go ahead.
Oh, and I was going to say, and I do wish we had more information. What were you going to say?
I happen to know you have another topic.
Yes. So we talked about, well, before we move forward, I wanted to say that I had come across a person who found the thought of having additional lives and lifetimes and progressing past this one, and their soul kind of just keeps doing these hop, skip, and jumps, exhausting. And I just thought that was incredibly fascinating. He was like, no, I want to be done. Like, this is a problem. I don't want additional lives. I've done a lot. And I found that fascinating. So maybe that can be our next show topic. What does the opposite end of this spectrum look like? But our next topic, sort of in the same realm of belief systems, is coming from a person who is trying to manage their process around the occult. So this person says, how do you guys fit magic into your everyday life? Sometimes I feel like I get burnt out trying to fit magic into my life. I pretty much have to get up at 5 a.m. to have time to do it. And I don't want magic to go from something I love to something that feels like a burden. It feels just like there's so much information to take in, that there's just enough hours in the day. One could easily spend an entire day doing nothing but rituals and learning. So where to begin, right? The giggling is because I know I've come across this, not necessarily in magical practice, but just in any belief system. When I was a Christian, it was like, when do you, like, you hear about people spending entire days in their prayer closet, and it's just like, why would you do that? In metaphysical circles, you hear about people taking on several hour meditations. And again, my question was, what can you do in that amount of time that you cannot do in either spaced out moments, or like, what is taking so long? So that's initially where my mind went. I was like, oh, I remember feeling overcome with what to do. So what are your thoughts, Katrina?
Well, In the vein of shit talking the ascended masters, uh, my husband is a student of Paramahansa Yogananda and the Self-Realization Fellowship, and this is a big part of his philosophy. And we have had huge discussions about this. And I love the ashrams. I've been to the one in Pacific Palisades, and it's beautiful. And that's where he spent a lot of, not Eric, but Paramahansa Yogananda spent a lot of his time. And he was, all of his adult life, for the most part, was spent in a protected environment at an ashram with all of his needs being catered to. And that's where I got the idea of, you know what, I just got to get me a cult. Okay. This is, and so this tends to happen where we find a holy person, or we find, and believe me, I am a cult fanatic. I
A
love
lot of good shows on Netflix. I bet you've
Yo
seen.
Baby, and I've seen them all. I like, and YouTube and Hulu. I like the occult, and I also like occult. The idea fascinates me. Now, that idea is that we have usually a single charismatic leader that we have somehow decided is more enlightened than the rest of us.
Mm-hmm.
And there are different ways that people come to that sort of conclusion. And then we take them out of everyday life and provide for them so that they can think holy thoughts and come up with these amazing wisdoms for us. The problem is, and this is what I was arguing to Eric about his master, is that they are not living a life. And therefore, what they're saying is not applicable to my life. And so when, even as a Christian, when I heard about people going to their closet of prayer for the day, and my grandmother was actually a Pilgrim Holiness minister, and this is the people that we would call the holy rollers. And she never in her entire life cut her hair. She always wore 3/4 length sleeves and stockings and dresses below her knees, and never wore pants. And she was the authentic biblical fanaticist. She believed the Bible is literally true, and it worked for her. And she would whip herself into a mad frenzy of prayer. And anytime it was Thanksgiving or anything like that, and people are like, Grandma Mary, would you say the blessing? Is like, oh fuck, we're never gonna get to eat. And she would just go for it, man. Go for it. And I, of course, being who I was, had, the laying on of hands and her crying and sweating and praying hard for me. I remember she gave me a little statue when I was 13 years old that was a red devil that said, "Good little girls go to heaven, bad little girls go everywhere."
Oh.
And I'm telling you, this was hardcore stuff. And it was traumatizing for me, but she was just a fit of prayer at all times. So I'm getting to the point, which is, I don't think that people, it's great if you are in a position where you can devote your entire life to your spiritual development and belief and practice. But I don't think that that's something that's practical for most people. And that doesn't mean that most people aren't magical. That doesn't mean that most people aren't spiritual. It means what you're doing is spiritual. What you're doing is magical. If you are having to stop and make time to do it, you're doing it wrong.
Mm-hmm.
Now, I understand, okay, I put aside a day to welcome the winter solstice and to be mindful of that. But you better believe when I'm scheduling my coven work or my group work, I mean, today's the winter solstice. Look around. Eric's here. My people aren't here. Why? Because they have JOBBBBBIES. Okay. They work. They're gone. They're not here. When my kids were little, we celebrated the winter solstice around the 21st, as close to the 21st as we possibly could. I pulled their asses out of school, and that was our day.
Nice.
But they're grown-ups with grown-up jobs now. When you work for the state of California isn't usually going to let you off work to go, play winter solstice with your mommy. So we schedule according to when they have off time. So my point is, we live in a modern normal life, what we would call normal or common life, common experience. And our spirituality comes into that. When I'm washing dishes, that becomes a spiritual experience for me because I'm feeling the element of water. I'm feeling the heat that comes from the fire that has warmed, in theory, the water. I'm feeling the earth beneath my feet when I walk to the mailbox. You work your spirituality into every moment that you're living. And that's how you know you're doing it. If you're having to make time to accommodate your magic is not welcoming of you.
Mm-hmm.
You have to be open to the idea that everything we do is magical, not just lighting the candle, stirring the cauldron, twerking up the incense. It's about creating magical moments where you are at your desk in your cubicle, or having a magical moment with a client on the phone where they're not hearing what you're saying because it's a stupid Mercury retrograde, and you take a moment and take a breath and you just say, give me the words. Mercury, great planet of communication, give me the words. And you just start talking and they're like, I hear it now. I wish you said that the first time. Everything is magical. You don't have to make time for it to be vital and magic.
I would say the same thing goes for when I'm talking to folks or teaching about energy and meditation and things like that. I mean, one of the biggest pushbacks on meditation that I come across is I don't have time. And just as you've mentioned about washing the dishes, everything can become a meditation. I remember sitting in the presence of clearly I don't remember that clearly, but there was one of the spiritual leaders I was sitting with at one point, me and my partner was asking that question, like, when do you make time for meditation? And his response was, everything is a meditation for me. And this can look like moving slowly or moving with intention, and presenting yourself in that moment as focused on what's happening. um, so not to poo-poo anybody that spends, the lengthy bits of time. I remember there being an individual who would tell me, like, oh yeah, I was meditating for 5 hours, and then I would ask, like, well, what did you get out of it? And it was like, nothing. And I was like, okay, well, what is that about? And I think, one of the things that's important just is to be aware, right? What am I doing this for? What am I connecting for? And sometimes it will be that you're hoping to receive an answer and it doesn't come for 4 hours. And you're listening to two people who will gladly engage in a 2-hour ritual and think nothing of it. And you're talking to two individuals who will send up that request and then keep going on about their day, looking for
Yep.
wherever the answer is in the cosmos, and not have to be seated or still to receive, because there's a carried stillness inside, and an invitation to just drop this whenever you got time, universe.
I've got a client that is currently in I think it's a 1 or 2 week meditation retreat in India.
Oh wow.
And he is Indian, but he lives in the United States and traveled to India for this experience and goes to India often because he has family there. But I burned a Shiva Kundalini candle for him because he was working with Shiva energy. And this is one that we've used for him quite often. And I messaged him because I knew that they took his phone for this retreat. So it was only, I think, once a week or so that he could even check messages. And I was burning candles for him all through this time. And so I messaged him and said, okay, here's your candle report. But man, your Shiva Kundalini candle exploded. And I sent him pictures of the broken glass, and the whole bottom of this thing had come out, and the whole thing was clear. There wasn't resistance, but it was just blown apart.
Mm.
And it had happened at the end of the burn. And I said, I don't know what you did with Shiva Kundalini energy, but man, it was rocking. And they had done an entire day of no eating, no drinking, no sleeping, nothing but chanting a Shiva Kundalini chant the entire day.
Mm.
Now, again, very different people embracing spirituality in very different ways. I told that to Eric and he goes, oh my gosh, that sounds amazing.
It
I heard
does.
that. Wow, he was down to clown, man. He was up for that. I listened to that and I was like, man, I'd be eating off my foot to get out of there. For me, I don't want to do something that feels good all day long. Okay. And so I hear about different voodoo rituals where a person is being ridden and where they are having this amazing experience where the Loa is coming through them and speaking through them, and everybody around them is getting amazing information and experience, and the hair's going up on their arms, and that's going on for 3 days. And I'm like, oh, hell no. I don't want to sit and talk to John Lennon or Jesus or Maya Angelou for 3 days. I don't want to sit and talk to my dead mama for 3 days. That's a lot.
It is.
And so I just want to be clear that this person probably has some pretty strong expectations and longings for what they want their magic to be, frustration that the mundane world takes so much away from their magical experience that they're not getting those things.
Mm.
I just want to say, especially again, we don't have an age on this person. If this is somebody in their 20s, somebody in your 30s, bless your heart, honey. Wait for it, work for it, create a life so that you can have that at the end of your life when you are more experienced, when you have had life experience and spiritual experience behind you. Set up an exit strategy so that you can leave the rat race, so that you can leave the demands of the world. And I know this, not everybody has this opportunity, but it's something you make happen. It's not something that just willy-nilly comes to you. You start creating that in your 30s. You start creating that when you're a young person, looking forward to that. And then you've got those 10, 20, 30 years that you can go to your prayer closet for a week and a half if that's what you want to do. Or you can do Kundalini chants all day long if that's what you want to do. Or you can sleep in until you want to wake up if that's what you want to do. Now, to me, sleep is magical. It's a magical place. I have very vivid, lucid dreams. And when I go to sleep, I'm ready for the picture show to start. Show me what I'm supposed to be focusing on that my subconscious, my higher self knows about that my conscious self doesn't know about. Show me what I need to be looking at. Let me find the allegory. Let me find the correlations. Figuring out my dreams is one of the most magical things that I do because I have wicked, insane dreams. I mean, that are just off the hook. Even just feeling rested in my day lets me be more magical when I do other things. So you will find your stride. Just go with it. That's my thought.
Mine coincide with yours. I hadn't, except for the piece on creating the life to where you can do these things. I will say when I was reading through this, and then there were a couple comments, there was a lot of similarities to that part of what you were saying. Other experienced witches coming in and saying, listen, you do magic to get you to a place and then you continue your rituals from that place. I think it's very important, whoever this person is, whatever their age is, to figure out why it is. It sounds like someone who may be a part of, like you were saying, gurus and leaders that push a certain way of being, that are out of touch and don't allow and maybe don't allow or convey that there's other paths. There's like a lesser path, not a lesser path, but a different path, sort of in the vein of like what do you call them? There's a a belief system in Judaism where they have the hats and the
the Hasidic Jews,
like a Hasidic Jew and like an everyday Jewish individual. Those two people operate differently ritualistically or even in prayer. I think this person definitely needs to figure out like what's their goal. I like the thought of doing rituals and magic or energy work when you are trying to get to a particular outcome that requires a lot of energy. Then I would say, yes, make the time. Like, let's say this person is trying to get a job that is outside of their skill set or experience level, but is part of their skill set, and they have to surpass other individuals. You're looking at a situation where it would be beneficial to set aside a whole day to do the work because you're building energy at that point. But just to do it, I don't know.
The question also comes up, and this is where all the answers to this issue lie. Why does it feel hard?
What's your resistance?
Right. What about this feels hard? Or as if you don't have enough time. Now, if it's that I don't have enough time, this means not for magic, but in life, you need to structure your time differently. You're conveying an idea of I don't have time to do the things I want to do in my life. Another thing is this person trying, they mentioned the idea of, how can I put it? That there's so much information to take in. There's just not enough hours in the day. It sounds like they want all of it. And so they're pursuing, maybe they're new to this and they just want to learn all the things. And we call this in Wicca, we call it wiki because it's the phase when you first get there and you're so excited because I want to learn herbology and I want to learn astrology and I want to learn, how to cast a circle. I want to learn how to call it the goddess. I want to call all these things. Oh my gosh. And I want to know them all today. And so it's very exciting. And it's like you can't eat the whole apple at once. You got to eat it a bite at a time.
Right.
So my thought is if it feels like there's just too much to learn out there and there just aren't enough hours in the day to learn it, relax, take a breath, and see what comes to you, what finds you. I had my time of just being aggressive and wanting to learn all the things, and it was exhausting. And I didn't know where to start. And back then, we didn't even have the internet. So I couldn't internet everything. I had to go read card catalogs and libraries, and I had to write to people with my hand. I had to go to metaphysical stores and talk to people and interview really weird people sometimes trying to get into this coven or that group or get an invitation here or there, go to this class and that class. It was exhausting. It was. But I got past that point where I could just say, what is finding me? What's coming to me? I did not set up to follow a Mexican higher power that death. That wasn't my construct at all. She found me. She went and found me and said, you're going to accidentally go into this presentation instead of the one you were going to go to. And from that moment on, I'm going to have you captivated. So wait and see what comes to you naturally and trust the process. I think we can say that about the death segment and this segment. Trust your processes and what comes to you, and then take that energy and create what you want.
I would also, to piggyback on what you're talking about coming to you, paying attention to the processes in your witchcraft that are the most meaningful and interjecting those in your life. I remember working with Reiki and feeling a sense of excitement and wholeness just around being able to put my hands on, well, they were mostly animals at the time. So I focused on animals. I didn't want to work with people initially. I was like, I've got these animals I could work on, send energy to a room, and this is enough. And the idea of supporting people felt a little overwhelming at first. It was kind of like, I know there's a lot of people out there that need support. And so when you start to break down your practices and figure out what is the most meaningful, maybe it's talking to your water, maybe it's um, I don't know, like meditating. I stammer because it's like one of the things that I did this morning because I was like, I don't know, solstice energy. What do I feel like doing? Was to meditate at the shifting of the day. So that was sunrise and getting to watch it and being in that space and setting intentions and things of that nature. Am I going to do that every solstice? Am I going to do that every single day? Maybe, maybe not. But it's not an indication. And I think that I'm seeing some of this in the space too, is it's not a justification for my spirituality. And I think this person is like feeling less witchy because
Mm-hmm.
she doesn't operate in a particular way. I have a friend whose whole I find her so fascinating because her whole family's into witchcraft, much like yours, Katrina. And well, not necessarily your whole family, but you guys have rituals and things. And she would we would talk and she'd be like, damn it, I forgot to put out my moon water, and so like she
Oh
was like,
no.
yeah, she was like the least aggressive individual about her practices, and it was so funny. But she was funny as all get out. But one thing was for sure is that her belief systems and the way that she put forward that energy was potent. And so I say all of this to say, if I was having a conversation with this person, it would be, what's the most important thing to you? Not unlike the near death person. What is the most important thing to you, and how do we connect with that so that your practice is your own, and how do we fill it in throughout the day? Doing something that you feel connected to 2 to 5 times a day can completely change the meaningfulness in your life and create connections, unexpected connections. I mean, to me, that's how Santa Muerte walks into your life, or that's how Jesus walks into your life for real, or whatever it is that you feel like you need to connect to, or your higher self, if that's all it is.
Absolutely. And, I find it fascinating. Well, for one thing, both of these people are at a real disadvantage not knowing us. Because
Damn it.
we could get them through. Okay. We got you. We got you. We can do this together. But I also would say that what I find fascinating is that when I read this, you said she. I thought it was a dude.
Oh,
Isn't
how
that
funny.
funny? Yeah,
Unexpected gendering. Sorry about
I
that.
did. I totally gendered, and I usually try not to, but I just had this feeling this is a guy, but I don't know.
It's
So
possible.
interesting. Not that gender matters in this certain conversation. It was just funny when you said she. I was like, what?
Um, this person username is Tyler, so maybe you're right. I mean,
I don't
so
know.
that's so in between, right? Like, it's a non-gender specific name. In any case, so what are you guys feeling about all of this? Christian who had multiple near-death experiences and is now sort of teetering, maybe not necessarily on faith, but on framework of belief
Mhm.
system, and a person who is wherever they are in their on their witchy journey that feels like it's exhausting to have to do rituals every day or at 5 a.m. or and then there's just so much to integrate as part of their life. Have you
I just
guys
want
felt
to.
this way?
I want to quickly say that I feel like I'm one of the most magical people I know. I ain't getting up at 5 in the morning for shit. Now Eric's going to get up at 5 o'clock tomorrow. Not maybe not 5 o'clock, but early tomorrow morning at sunrise. Get ready for this because the winter solstice for us happens at 8 o'clock tonight. So he's going to get up tomorrow morning and note the position of where the sun comes up and drive a giant stake into the outside of our circle area to mark that space. And then he's going to do the same thing for the solstices and summer equinox, so that we've got the 4 positions of the sun all the way around the circle. I would not get up that early to do that. He will
Uh,
though.
okay, so for me, getting up that early is practical. If I have reading or if I have a healing scheduled, I get up at like 3:30, 4 o'clock. Just to... but practicality is I don't want to be interrupted by my babies. And I don't want to be interrupted by anybody else's energy. And I don't want to have to apply that much energy to focus. And at those times of day, I don't.
At
After 6 o'clock, I
5:30,
become very
I'm getting
distracted.
up for my first pee of the night. And then I'm going back to sleep for another 4 hours.
And the beautiful thing about all of these different experiences between you, me, and Eric is that we are all incredibly magical. And so I hope our audience is taking that from this moment. It's like, whatever your experience is, if it is who you are at your core, you are going to be amplified more than any sort of ritualistic following of someone who is out of touch with your life.
So don't try to make your magic about what somebody else is doing. Even
Yes.
if that's your spiritual leader, even if Tyler, that is somebody who's telling you you need to do these things or you must do these things. You do you, boo.
I love that. Again, Katrina has all these t-shirt moments. You do you, boo. Hashtag magical life. With that, y'all, have a happy winter solstice. Have a great week. We may or may not be on next week. We'll see what
We'll
happens.
see.
But either way, if we do or don't, have a great New Year, because we're going to miss you on that anyway. Because I'm not hopping on here on New Year's Eve or New Year's Day. Neither is Katrina. Anyway, have a great night, y'all. We'll catch you next